Hey everybody, I hope you're doing great. So this is going to be a bit rough, unscripted, off the cuff. I just want to get this thing done and make it as short as possible. So you can see when we launch the game, it goes into this menu first and it's waiting for a prompt. Now it's great for the first time when you get this game going is you can configure some additional settings here, but once those are dialed in, you don't need it anymore. But it's still waiting for a confirmation, either enter on the keyboard or using the mouse and clicking into the menu. So this is a solution for those of you that don't have a Stream Deck or an advanced USB encoder that you can say, hold down a button which acts as a shift and adds an additional layer of things that you can custom map to the buttons, and you don't have all that. So this is a software solution for those of you in that situation where you still want to ditch the keyboard and have that arcade experience, but if you run into a Steam game that has this problem, not really a problem, but it has this situation, I will have to either click here. But as you can see, when the menu launches initially, the start is highlighted. So if I just push enter, and as you can see, it launches into the game now. So the solution I'm going to show you is using a piece of software called Joy2Key. It is really amazing. It's not free, but it's very affordable. So make sure you show the developers some support. So what it's going to do is it's going to take the joystick inputs and convert it to keystrokes. And this is really cool. It also has the power to map custom buttons and map combinations of buttons to certain things. And that's what we're going to do. Since our encoder doesn't have a shift function, we're going to just add it via this software. You can see all the buttons here. Now, my control panel only has 7 buttons and our start button. It doesn't have button 14, 15, 16, and so that's what we're going to do. Now I'm going to take button 15 and I'm going to make that our enter key on the keyboard. So bear with me, it's going to make sense. So since 15 doesn't exist anywhere on my control panel, I don't have to worry about it accidentally being pressed during a different game. So I can assign it the key press, and now it's listening. I'm going to hit enter. So now it's assigned enter to our button 15, which doesn't exist. Bear with me, it'll make sense. So now we have button 15 mapped to the enter key. So whenever button 15 is triggered, it's going to push enter on the keyboard. So as you can see, when I hit buttons on my control panel, those buttons are lighting up because Joy2Key is listening. Now I can assign any of these buttons to keyboard presses that I want, depending on your situations. Tons of stuff you can do with this. We're going to use this as a solution to that one problem with the menu popping up. And there's a few games that have that same issue, and this should solve that for you. So I'm going to pick a button combination that we wouldn't normally hit, and that button combination is going to trigger our invisible button 15, which is going to be our enter key. Bear with me, I hope this is all going to make sense. So I've got my start button, which is button 10. You can see when I push that, and that's just how it is on my setup. Your setup is going to be different. And I have this button here, which is button 7. It's very unlikely I'm going to push these 2 buttons simultaneously at any given moment during normal gameplay. So I'm going to take these 2, I'm going to note button 7 and button 10, and I'm going to assign that combination to trigger our button 15, which then triggers enter. So check this out. So while we're in here, now I've confirmed what buttons I want to assign to it. So I'm going to go to my options tab here. It's going to get confusing, so remember, you do it at the options tab on the top. And I go here to button mapping. Okay, don't get this confused with your assignments that are here. It's just called button mapping. I don't know why it's used interchangeably, and click that. Now that's going to take us into our aliases. So basically that's what we're doing, is we're assigning an alias to that button 15. So I'm going to highlight that button 15, and you can see when button 15 is pressed, it's triggered by button 15. Makes sense. 15 triggers 15. But we want to change that. So we actually want button 10, which we decided. So now if I leave it at that, if I hit button 10, it's also going to simultaneously trigger button 15, which we don't want in this case. But that's kind of a cool thing you can do in other situations if you need 2 things to fire at the same time when we hit one button. If you ever needed that, it can do it. So now I'm going to go into this tab. It says trigger when the following button is pressed. Only trigger when the following button is also pressed. What this means is now we have to push these 2 buttons in order to trigger our hidden 15 button. And I'm going to scroll through everything here, and I'm going to get to our button 7. So now button 10 and button 7 need to be pressed in order to trigger our hidden button 15. And you can see that right here in this spot. Now, I also highly recommend, if you start doing this, to make a little notepad file that you're going to keep track of all this, because I guarantee you're not going to remember a month down the road. All right, so now when I hit OK, check this out. We're going to go back to our joystick buttons. Now, because it's highlighted, you can see I've clicked on it. It turns blue, whatever I click on. If you click on something, it won't show you that yellow line. So be aware that if you're going, hey, it's not working, it could be because you've got it selected and it's just not showing you that. So if I click off, now it'll allow us to see the yellow bar when we push it. So if I push start, button 10 highlights as expected. I push this button, button 7 highlights as expected. Now when I push the 2 of these, button 15, you see that is highlighted only when both of these are pushed simultaneously. And when button 15 is triggered, it's going to push the enter key, which is what we want, all through the control panel, so we can get rid of the keyboard again. Now, this stays running in the background and it's listening. And again, it does a lot more, but we're not going to get into it at the moment. So now when I go into the game and launch it, we get this submenu that pops up, and not every game does this, but just some Steam games do. Fortunately, it defaults to the start game box. You can see that that box is highlighted, so we don't need to mouse over to it. That is active. If we had to, we could assign a different key combination to do the tab, so we could tab through a menu, which I've had to do in some. We don't need to do that here. So now when I push these 2, it's going to hit the enter key. Bam! And it starts our game. All from the control panel. This is great. All right, so now it's in game, and we did it through our control panel using that hidden button that is, or sorry, we're using that alias button to trigger our enter key. So same thing when we want to exit. I go to exit, this menu comes up again, and I have to hit the enter key to confirm that yes, I want to quit. So I hit both of these buttons again like we had set up. Boom, that confirms the OK, and now we're kicked back out into our menu. So if we were launching this game from Launchbox, Big Box, we could now use that to navigate and pop right back out and use our buttons and sticks for navigating to the next game that we want to play. So I hope this helps you, and I hope it's not too rambly, convoluted. We'll see how it goes together when I edit it. I hope this has been helpful and giving you some ideas and another solution that you can use to get rid of that keyboard and have that arcade experience and deal with some of these Steam games that have that partial controller support where that weird little menu comes up. Sorry for the roughness of this video, but I just wanted to get it out as quickly as possible. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking if you liked. Thank you for sharing if you shared. If not, I appreciate it anyways. Check me out on Twitch and all that fun stuff, and let me know what else you'd like to do and see here. So stay rad and retro. I'm still working on my closing statement here, but that's the best I got right now. Have a good one.